Hello everyone, welcome to this week's GT Sport Daily Race C race review. Our Group 2 cars were at Fuji International Speedway and this combo tried very hard to break me on Tuesday night. So the race settings for this one are on the screen here. We've got 13 laps to get round, we've got tyre wear at times 5, fuel consumption at times 4 and just the medium tyre available. Now from the strategy guide we did decipher that the one stop was slightly quicker, but the no stop is probably the safer option because you'd have to try and negotiate some traffic if you went for a pit stop, and as this week has progressed it's definitely the no stop that is taking precedence over the one stop. So you pretty much have to go for the no stop, everybody else around you will be doing it. You go for that pit stop, you lose 7 seconds, you probably come out behind 2 or 3 cars that are not intending to pit, and as I've found out from the live stream that we did on Tuesday morning, early Tuesday afternoon, and subsequently from this session here, people are not willing to make it very easy for you to pass even though you're on clearly superior tyres. So let's get into this first race here. We're starting this one down in 8th place. We did this session on about the Tuesday evening, maybe around about 9 o'clock. This was to kind of try and rebuild up my DR after the live stream we did. But in the live stream we used all 6 of the Group 2 cars. It didn't go brilliant, wasn't the greatest display of driving on my part. The results weren't terrible, but we did lose quite a bit of DR in the process because I think in most of those lobbies we were ranked number 1 and we were finishing down in sort of 4th, 5th and 6th position for most of them, and we did have a bit of a disaster in the Epson NXS as well where we finished down in 13th. So we had lost a little bit of driver rating over the course of those 6 races, so my intention was jump back on, just go in the meta car, get familiar with that, get some good results and build up some of that driver rating. And unfortunately things were not to go quite as planned. But this first race is now underway. We're sort of struggling to hold on here to the guys in front of us in the early stages. Tends to be a trait of mine in these races. People seem to be much quicker on the fresh tyres straight off the bat than what I am. As we jump to lap number 3 here, we are holding on as the drivers in front are fighting. We've made up a couple of positions courtesy of penalties. As we approach the chicane, we've got the close attention of a Dutch driver behind us. Now we do take a look behind us there. I made a decision that they weren't close enough to go for a move. They decided they were close enough to go for the move, obviously suffering from a little bit of two-temp syndrome. So I wasn't expecting them to be there, closed the door firmly. Wasn't very happy the fact they thought they could go for that move, and we were taking no prisoners there, I have to be honest. But most annoying of all is just by making a bit of a silly move like that, it's just how much time we lose to the cars in front of us. This early stages in the race, it's just a case of holding on to the cars in front and we'll sort of decide who's going to finish where in the second half of the race. And I think we lost nearly 8 tenths to a second, just courtesy of the Dutch driver going for a bit of a reckless, pointless move in my opinion. However, the drivers in front have also been fighting, so we are starting to close that gap back up as we come to the end of lap number 4 here, and there's going to be a bit of an interesting situation. So the Hungarian driver Tom, we've got Big Boris, the Italian, they are fighting, so they kind of leave the space right down the outside of turn 1, so I decide to throw the car down in there into that space. Tom gives me the space on the exit, the Italian gets a little bit of a wobble on the curb, and we have this horrible situation of going free wide into turn number 2 here. Now I decide wisely to back out of it, and the Italian and Tom managed to make it through the corner nice and safely. So good driving from all 3 of us there, respecting each other, giving the space. But this battle was going to rage on. Again, I'm going to try and throw it down the outside here. I think the Italian misses his braking point, hits into the Hungarian Tom there, catches me on the outside of the corner, and I pick up a 3-second penalty, which is annoying to say the least, and it's the first of a few instances going to sort of test my patience, and the second instance is going to come very quickly here. As we come into the chicane, I didn't think at the time we'd got our braking right, but it looks like to me that Tom maybe hit the back of the Italian, came to a bit of an abrupt halt. I've then hit the Hungarian and picked up a further 5 seconds on top of my 3-second penalty, and I have 8 seconds to serve as we come to the penalty zone, and you can just see how much time that takes to serve. Unfortunately, other drivers have also picked up penalties in that mix. I'm not entirely sure what happened. It just looked like a very awkward, horrible situation with drivers approaching the corner, or a very tight corner at different speeds, and we've all kind of paid the price for it. It just looked like a rather large racing incident. But from now on, we've now got to be very careful. We've picked up 2 penalties, 8 seconds worth, and we're going to have to start making a recovery very carefully. First position is made up courtesy of the Hungarian there, who's had a very common accident. You get on the power too early out of the last corner and round she goes. You'll see many a driver do that over the course of this week. Coming down into turn number 1 here, we could have had a little look at the French driver here, but we're going to try and keep it round the outside. We can't afford to make any contact when we're here. Pick up another penalty. We're possibly looking at an SR reset, which is definitely not what we want. At the end of the day, we were on this account to, or certainly in this session, to try and gain DR, not get a DR reset. So we're going to have to keep it very careful over the rest of this race as we try and recover from that 8-second penalty. And you're going to see just how cautious I've got to be. They were definitely in a position here to make a move on the French driver, but I just don't know if he's going to give me the space. I'm not confident that I'll get the space, so I decided better off going for that move. Just not wanting to risk any kind of contact in case we get a penalty. Now the Frenchman did pit the next laps, we made up that position. Then we had Wouter here, who very, very kindly and probably cost himself a lot more time than he had to let me through at the chicane here. Now I don't have a button set to my hazards, so I couldn't say thank you at the time, but I did say thank you in the post-race chat, and that put us up into 8th place. We've got Tom battling with a Turkish driver, I believe, up in P number 6 there. He's made his way through, and that Turkish driver was going to be our next target. So lap number 12 now, only 1.5 laps to go. Now Wouter made it very easy for us, but the Turkish driver is going to fight for this position, as well he should at this late stage in the race. But we do seem to have a lot of extra pace over this driver. Going to have a look down the outside of the chicane, but we're not going to get round the outside of there, so we decide better of it. We'll just make sure we're in close enough positions. We come down the straight. The Turkish driver realises the game's up, just stays on the racing line and lets me go down the inside. He is going to have a little bit of a look down the outside as we go into the braking zone, but as long as we park it on the apex, it's job done. And that was a nicely negotiated move without any kind of contact, and keeping those penalties down, because we just cannot afford any more penalties at this point. But we bring it home in 7th place, not a bad recovery. We're down in 12th place after the 8 seconds worth of penalty. But you can see from this, we've got the red S. Now my SR didn't go down as much as I thought it would, only went down from 99 to 93, but in the next race, we did sort of warn the pack that we need to be on our best behaviour. Now unfortunately, I don't think the memo got out to some drivers out there, and we're going to find ourselves in a couple of dicey situations. And in fairness, we're starting this race in possibly one of the worst places, right in the middle of the mid-pack, 10th place start. We've got the Greek driver of Mel behind us. Now Mel is a driver I have had run-ins with before in the past. Certainly, I won't go as far as to call him a dirty driver, but let's just say I won't call him a clean driver. And me and Mel are going to have a little bit of a moment in this one, let's just put it that way. But coming to the chicane at the end of lap number 1, going to be a little bit of a concertina effect here. Now we're going to do our best here to avoid contact with the driver in front of us. That looks like a Russian driver. He's going to have a strange moment here on the curb. It's going to cause us to go into the back of him, and going to end up on the curb on the inside and have a little bit of a moment as we try and recover the car. And I'm not entirely sure what happened there. It was a little bit strange. We did force Mel to go a little bit wide to avoid contact with us, and then he's going to kind of make a rather strange move up the inside. We leave plenty of room on the inside, but he makes contact with us, and in all honesty with you, we're quite lucky we never got spun round from that. Now we've lost all our momentum down the straight. If you look in the radar, we've got 5 cars hovering about all in the same part of the track. And as we all approach turn number 1, are we going to get it sorted out? Unlikely in the midfield that anybody's going to yield. Now we've got space right down the outside into turn 1, so I thought we'll go break nice and deep. We'll try and go wide and try and pass a couple of guys on the outside. And we make contact with Mel, and we pick up a 4-second penalty. Now I realise at this point I can't afford any more contacts with anyone. We just brake, we'll let the pack go by. I'm going to have to sit this one out and just race around at the back and pick up some green sectors, because we're already sitting with a low SR at this point. Another 4-second penalty on top of it. I don't know where that's going to leave me. I would rather just sacrifice the driver rating, drive around at the back and get it back up to 99 SR. But let's just take a look at that incident again. So we'll jump on board with Mel, the Greek driver here. You see my car go off the track there. It's a very strange moment. Mel has to take avoiding action around the outside, but there's no contact between any of the drivers here. And then into the last turn, he sort of throws it up the inside. He understeers into me. I kind of give him room on the apex, but he still sort of goes towards the edge of the track. Makes quite a lot of contact with us. As I said, we're very lucky not to spin round there. You can see just how close we were to losing the back end of the car. And as we kind of drag race down here towards turn number 1, there's going to be 4 cars going to go wide into a very narrow corner. Now you wouldn't think it'd be possible for 4 cars to go wide through turn number 1, and I'm about to prove to you that it is possible. So there we are, there's the picture, 4 wide into a hairpin, and surprisingly, as the footage restarts, we all make it through without too much contact, without too much bashing anybody kind of really losing out too badly. Unfortunately, as you've seen from the earlier footage, we picked up a 4-second penalty for that, so did one of the other drivers. So out of the 4 drivers that went in there, 2 of us got 4-second penalties and the other 2 got nothing. So yeah, we kind of dropped down to the back of the grid, and then we realised we're going to have to be super careful with any negotiating of the traffic that we kind of came across, because we just could not afford to pick up another penalty. I didn't think I could afford to pick up another penalty, but you can be the most careful driver in the world in Gran Turismo sport. Towards the back of the grid, anything can happen. With this penalty system, anything can happen. Spanish driver goes wide into turn number 2, comes back on the track. We gave him plenty of room, thought we gave him a wide enough berth. There was the most minimal of contacts, to be honest with you, and we pick up another 1-second penalty. And to be at this point, I'm probably one of the biggest defenders, no, maybe not defender is the word of the penalty system in Gran Turismo sport, but I certainly give it less stick than a lot of other people who sort of put content out there. But at this point it was beginning to really try and break me, that's for sure. I was pretty much at my edge here. I think if I'd maybe been playing on the pad might have been through the telly. Maybe that's one advantage of using the wheel. You're not going to put your wheel through the telly at the very least. But my patience has been very much tested over the course of these 2 races with the penalty system. And I guess, you know, I'm not going to rag on it too much, but it's certainly not looking too clever at times in this race, as I think I've quite aptly demonstrated. So we served that 1-second penalty anyway. I'm just decided I want away from everyone, we'll go into the pits, we'll get a fresh set of tyres, and we'll just kind of go back to the original plan. We're just driving round at the back, pick up those green sectors, try and recover as much SR as we can, because I don't think people quite understand how the SR ups and down work in this game. So you can pick up a number of penalties, but as long as the rest of your race you're just picking up the green sectors, then it kind of, from what I can pick up anyway, it kind of adds up. So if you kind of do 7 laps with green sectors and then get a penalty, it kind of, I guess, neutralises it. It won't necessarily mean you're going to get a red S at the end of the race. That's kind of just the way I've kind of looked at it anyway. Sometimes, you know, you pick up a penalty on the last lap, you think you're going to finish the race with a red S, but because you've been picked up so many green sectors over the course of the race, then the SR down's not enough to kind of nullify everything you've picked up previously. Anyway, on to the last lap now, and look who we come up behind. We've got the Greek driver Mel in front of us. Now I could tell just from the way he was driving, you can see here he goes super defensive into this corner. He wasn't interested in letting me past. Maybe he remembers me as well, so we just decided to hang back again. Didn't want to go through the last sector too close to him and risk picking up another penalty, so we'll just drop back by a couple of seconds. I'm not too bothered about fighting for P13 at this point. P13, P14 doesn't make a whole lot of difference. We actually ran out of fuel going over the line as well, so I did mention you can run out of fuel on this one, and we did run out of fuel. But P14 in that one and another red S. My patience was being sorely tested by the game at this point, and I didn't think it could be tested anymore, but GT Sport was to kind of prove that it still had a couple of slaps in the face to give me. So we did jump into the next race. What had started off as a DR recovery session was now an SR recovery session. I thought we'll jump into the next race. It will be a drop split. We'll start in pole position, we'll run away from the front, get the SR back up to 99, and then just call it quits for the night. And that looked like it was going to be a very good plan up until I kind of started thinking to myself, this lobby is taking an awful long time to load, and we got disconnected from the network. So if my patience hadn't already been tested up till this point from the previous 2 races, I was now extremely exasperated. I'm not entirely sure what was going on there. I've had very, very few disconnects, to be honest with you. It seemed to be some sort of PlayStation Network server problem more than anything else. But we did stick around, we managed to kind of just about keep it together. We'll get into the next race. It was still a drop split race, but you can see there's still some actual reasonably fast drivers in this one. I guess a few other drivers having problems with their SR as well. So we are starting this one in P number 2. The whole plan with this one, I didn't really care about the driver in front. all I wanted to do was just finish this race with the clean race bonus, get the SR back up to 99, and call it a night from there. Now I think we were down at 86 SR at this point, so certainly nowhere near as bad as you would think, given we picked up 4 penalties over the course of the previous 2 races. So 1 clean race bonus here, we should get back up to 99. So we just stuck with the Spanish driver on pole position. Now, quite an interesting race for me driving, because it did seem to be that the Spanish driver was far more interested in what I was doing than what he was doing or she was doing. So you can see them weaving down the straight as we start lap number 2 here. So they're quite obviously more interested in what I'm doing than what they're doing. Coming into the second lap here, or the end of the second lap, Spanish driver goes defensive again. So I go into the slipstream and then I just move out the slipstream. So I'm just trying to tell this driver, look, I'm not interested in passing you at this point. I just want to run away from the rest of the field and get a clean race bonus. We're both in the same boat here, I would imagine. We're both trying to get our SR back up to 99. But he's too busy watching me, and ends up going into turn number 1 in an awful tight line. He's back to the weaving as we come to the end of the next lap, but we are quite far behind. So when he wasn't sort of paying too much attention to what I'm doing, he seemed quite fast, but he did miss the apex there. The next lap, he goes defensive for trying to break the slipstream straight away. Now I didn't even follow him at all at this point, still trying to tell him my intentions. I don't really want to race you at this point. But as we come into the next lap, we were actually very close, so it just seemed that his tyres had maybe gone at this point. We were in the slipstream. I thought, well, you know what, we're close enough here to go for the move, let's go for the overtake. So in the slipstream, he's got it all the way to the pit wall. We pass him, we'll just pin him to the pit wall. We're not going to move out to the braking zone right till the very end, make him go in as narrow a line as possible, and he yields the position quite easily in at the end. And to be honest with you, that was pretty much that one. We were up in P1, we comfortably took the victory in the end. We just sort of toddled around over the last few laps, let the field close back up, and got the clean race bonus that we were looking for as well. So a nice blue S there. That got us back up to 99 SR, and I did say I was going to call it a night at that point, but I just decided to go in for another race, and I'm glad I did, because it was probably my best performance of the week so far. It was only to be a 5th place, but it was a strong field. It couldn't quite match the 4 drivers in front of us, but they managed to beat some good drivers behind us. Lap times certainly the most consistent that I'd managed over the course of the week, maybe about race number 7 or 8 this that I've done. We did the 6 races on the live stream, but this felt like a good one to kind of definitely end the session on. As I said, I always like to finish a session on a good result. It was a fairly boring race, to be honest with you. I was kind of just couldn't quite keep up with the guys in front, and just had enough pace to kind of gap the guys behind me. But yeah, I felt this was just pretty much managed to get my mojo back in order after this session. I came very close to getting broke, I really did. If you're venturing out on this one, then it is pretty dangerous out there, that's all I'll say. But just be careful out there with your SR. It does seem to be a bit of a punishment, or a punisher of sportsmanship rating. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video, hope I managed to entertain you. Like to show you sometimes it doesn't always go smoothly. This was definitely a case where things weren't going very smooth for me. But please do hit that like button, please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.